Good afternoon, and thank you for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva. When today's topic, Tree of Heaven, crossed my desk, I thought, that doesn't sound so bad. Little did I know. Tree of Heaven is an invasive plant species in Vermont, and to double down, it's the home of another invasive, an insect, the spotted lanternfly. The good news about Tree of Heaven is it's not really here yet, not much at least. So when you need to find a plant that isn't in Vermont yet, you send Across the Fence reporter Ben Willis out to find it. Ben was guided by someone who knows what to look for, Noah Hoffman of the Vermont Department of Forests, Parks, and Recreation. Here's Ben's story on the search for Tree of Heaven.
I'm the Invasive Species Coordinator for the Vermont Department of Forests, Parks, and Recreation, and I'm out here on the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail because we are partnering with UVM Extension and the Vermont Agency of Transportation, which helps to manage these rail trails, to help us identify some early detection species of concern and monitor their spread. And Tree of Heaven is one of those key species. Tree of Heaven is an introduced plant pest that can have many negative ecological consequences if it's allowed to become widespread. It's still fairly rare in Vermont. We don't have a lot of it. And so this is a species that we're trying to monitor and eradicate if possible. And the reason why is it's a highly competitive species. So it grows really well in disturbed sites, places where there are poor soils, not a lot of moisture, which is one of the reasons why we're looking on an abandoned railroad bed, because this is often where it's found in other states. And so being non-native and highly competitive, it can outcompete native vegetation that would favor those sites, things like birch, aspen, and cherry. But one of the main reasons why we're concerned about Tree of Heaven in particular is because it's the preferred host of spotted lanternfly, which is an agricultural pest of concern to our state and federal partners that can have really detrimental effects on orchards, vineyards, and other crops. What we have here is a leaf of Tree of Heaven, and it's side by side with a native lookalike, which is sumac. And when people are out there on rail trails or in other areas trying to observe Tree of Heaven, these two species can be confused, but there are a few key traits to notice that can help you distinguish between the two. First of all, you'll notice Tree of Heaven is typically a larger leaf. However, they're both compound leaves, so they have a main stem or a petiole with a bunch of leaflets coming off the sides. Sumac, this is the native species that's widespread in Vermont. You'll find it all over. This has opposite leaves coming off the main stem like this. Tree of Heaven does also, but the leaves are just a little offset. We call that subalternate. Also, the Tree of Heaven has a smooth margin, so the edge of the leaf is smooth, whereas the sumac has a serrated or lightly toothed leaf edge. However, the Tree of Heaven has these little lobes near the base, at least 2, sometimes up to 4 of them. We call these glandular teeth. And so these are some key traits to distinguish them. Also, if you were to take a Tree of Heaven leaf and crush it up, it smells just like burnt peanuts or peanut butter. Tree of Heaven belongs to a really small family of plants native to Asia that are known for their bitter and pungent characteristics. So if you crush up the leaf of Tree of Heaven, it'll smell just like burnt peanuts, whereas sumac or walnut, some of the other native lookalikes, kind of have just a more pleasant smell. So these are some key traits to identify Tree of Heaven leaves. If people find Tree of Heaven along the rail trail or in other places, they should report their observations to vtinvasives.org. You can upload pictures, you can write in other observations about the specific place where you found it. For us, the more information, the better. We love to get high quality photos and specific directions to the site so that we can tell, first of all, without going to the site, if it is Tree of Heaven or not. And if it looks like it might be, we want to get as specific directions as we can so that we can go find it.
Our thanks to Noah Hoffman and Ben Willis for that report. To talk more about Tree of Heaven and spotted lanternflies and other invasive flora and fauna, we've invited Ginger Nickerson to join us. Ginger is the Forest Pest Education Coordinator with Vermont Urban and Community Forestry. Welcome back to Across the Fence.
Thanks, Keith.
It's good to see you. Okay, this feels a little henny penny. The sky is not falling. Tree of Heaven isn't really here, really. So why are we worrying about this?
Well, we do have a few Tree of Heaven in Vermont that we know about, but just because we don't know about many trees being here does not mean that it's not here, because we've never looked for it systematically.
Okay.
So we're asking the public to help us look for it, because as Noah said, once it's established, it can spread very rapidly, pushing out other plants, and we don't want that to happen. But also because, as Noah said, it is the preferred host for spotted lanternfly. Spotted lanternfly doesn't require Tree of Heaven to become established, but if Tree of Heaven is around, it's much easier for spotted lanternfly to take up permanent residence.
And you were telling me before we started taping that Tree of Heaven is hard to get rid of, that you cut it down and it just springs back up because it sends out
it sends out suckers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, hard to get rid of Tree of Heaven. Talk about spotted lanternfly. I'm thinking back to our emerald ash borer days, and everyone thinking Vermont was this Eden, this paradise in the middle, surrounded by all the emerald ash borer and Asian longhorn beetle and whatever. We had never found it in Vermont. So are we finding spotted lanternflies in Vermont yet?
So fortunately, most of the spotted lanternflies that have been reported in Vermont have come in dead, either on produce or on other plants.
Okay.
So knock on wood, we've been lucky so far.
Okay. And what's the problem with spotted lanternfly? What do you get against spotted lanternfly?
So spotted lanternfly, again, it didn't evolve here, so it doesn't have a lot of predators to keep it under control.
Okay.
And we're concerned about it for a couple of reasons. The adults, when they're sap-sucking insects,
Okay.
so when the adults get together in large quantities, you'll find them in big groups. And they excrete a sticky substance called honeydew, which rains down on everything below it. So the problems with that are it makes being outdoors really unpleasant.
No one wants to be rained on by honeydew.
But the other thing is that they will feed on grapevines, and they can kill grapes. And the honeydew is attractive to a sooty mold, and that will harm leaves of other plants. So we're concerned about our grape industry and our tourism and recreation.
Yes. No one wants to be rained on by sticky goo, that's for sure. We've talked about spotted lanternfly on the program before. The other thing is they have these egg masses that sort of, they don't look like anything. They look like mud, so it's really easy. They can sneak in this way, sort of disguised, I guess. Is that the other problem with spotted lanternfly?
Yeah, well, that's definitely the biggest way that they're spreading from state to state or place to place, is that these egg masses look like dried mud, and so people don't notice them.
What about surrounding areas? When we had the issue with emerald ash borers I was talking about, it was sort of, on the border between New York and Vermont, or Massachusetts and Vermont. Is it the same issue with Tree of Heaven?
So Tree of Heaven is pretty widespread in the U.S. It's been here for many, many years, probably since the 1800s. So it's well established in Massachusetts, in New York, in eastern New York up until the Adirondacks, in southern New Hampshire, and in southern Ontario.
So is this just an issue for border towns to be sort of worried about Tree of Heaven, or are we talking, Chittenden County, Northeast Kingdom as well?
Well, we know that we do have some Tree of Heaven in Chittenden County, so
Okay.
yeah, we'd like people to look for it every place, but especially like in Windham and Bennington and Rutland counties.
So as I was getting ready with the script, I had emailed you about, well, we don't want people sending bugs through the mail, and then you said, let me check on that. So we spoke with the state entomologist and asked, if you see a spotted lanternfly specifically, what should you do?
Well, the first thing we want you to do is to squish it. These
Squish
bugs
it.
are fast, and we don't want them to start reproducing here, so it's really important to, if you think you've seen one, to kill it. And then, after you've killed it, take a picture of it, note the location, and submit the photo and the location to VT Invasives using the Report It button. And then we're asking people to take the insect, put it in a plastic bag, put it in your freezer, and if we confirm that it is a spotted lanternfly, then we'll need you to mail it in to us because it has to be reported federally.
So we have Judy's, the state entomologist statement right there. She tells you, put it in the freezer. Sounds like a fun family activity. Kids out there, find those spotted lanternflies, squish those bugs, put them in the freezer, and we'll see if we have one. I think VT Invasives is one of those great citizen science projects in Vermont. There are so many, and it's a great place to go if you see Asian longhorn beetle, if you see emerald ash borer. It's just a fun website to go to learn about these invasive or introduced species that are in Vermont and what to look for and what to find, because these are things that are either a issue with our local, well, I shouldn't say local, but issue with plants in Vermont and introduced species in Vermont. We don't want them crowding out. And one of the places that Tree of Heaven, we find it a lot, is in these marginal areas, places where things don't grow that well, right? It's not great soil or anything like that. And that's where these things, sort of pop up. So that's why they were on the rail trail.
Yeah. So the reason why we have the signs on rail trails is two reasons. One, because we know from other states that Tree of Heaven tends to grow on railroad beds. It likes sunny spots, open areas, and disturbed soils. But the other reason we chose rail trails is that they're high traffic areas, so it's a great place to raise awareness. And I would like to give a shout out to the VTrans rail trail system and the local rail trail councils that partnered with us on this effort. We really appreciate their support.
Awesome. So go out to the rail trails, go find those bugs, squish those bugs. Ginger, thank you so much. It's great to always see you and have you come on Across the Fence. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCX, who are always easy to find and never invasive, offensive, or bellicose. Yes, I have access to a thesaurus. I'm Keith Silva. This is Across the Fence. Thanks for being part of our family.